The Korean War. Sandwiched between two global conflicts, the Korean War is often relegated to the footnotes of history books, overshadowed by its larger, louder counterparts. Yet this limited war in a faraway country carries a profound significance that belies its neglected status. It was a war of firsts, the first hot conflict of the Cold War, the first test of the newly formed United Nations resolve, and the first demonstration of America's willingness to engage in a land war in Asia. The Korean War may be forgotten by some, but its impact on the geopolitical landscape of the world, the delicate balance of power in Asia, and the very fabric of international relations is undeniable and enduring. The Korean Peninsula, a land of rugged mountains and fertile valleys, has long been a crossroads of empires. Following the Russo-Japanese War of 1904 to 1905, Korea, then under the rule of the Joseon dynasty, was annexed by Japan, becoming a colony of the rising empire. For the next 35 years, Korea endured a brutal occupation, its people subjected to cultural suppression, economic exploitation, and forced labor. World War II brought an end to Japanese imperialism, but it also sowed the seeds for Korea's future division. In the closing days of the war, Allied forces agreed to divide Korea into two zones of occupation, a Soviet zone in the north and an American zone in the south, separated by the 38th parallel. Two states emerged, each reflecting the ideology of its sponsor, the communist DPRK in the north, led by Kim Il-sung, and the capitalist ROK in the south, under Syngman Rhee. The stage was set for conflict. On June 25, 1950, North Korean forces, equipped with Soviet tanks and artillery, surged across the 38th parallel in a surprise attack. The invasion took the South Korean army outgunned and outmaneuvered, completely off guard. Seoul fell within days. The North Korean People's Army, KPA, advanced rapidly southward, pushing the retreating South Korean and American forces into a shrinking pocket of resistance in the southeast corner of the peninsula. President Harry Truman, viewing the attack as a test of American resolve and a dangerous expansion of communist influence, committed U.S. forces to the defense of South Korea. The United Nations Security Council condemned the invasion and authorized the formation of a UN command to repel the aggression. The arrival of U.S. troops in Korea provided a much-needed morale boost to the beleaguered South Korean and UN forces. The tide of the war began to turn in September 1950 with the daring amphibious landing at Incheon, masterminded by General Douglas MacArthur. The Incheon landing, hailed as a brilliant strategic maneuver, shifted the momentum of the war in favor of the UN forces. Seoul was recaptured, and the North Korean army, once on the verge of victory, found itself in full retreat, pushed back across the 38th parallel. The UN forces, buoyed by their success, pressed their advantage, advancing northward, their sights set on the Yalu River, the border between North Korea and China. This advance, however, would prove to be a strategic blunder with far-reaching consequences. As UN forces pushed deeper into North Korea, they encountered a new and formidable foe, the Chinese People's Volunteer Army. Mao Zedong, alarmed by the UN advance toward the Yalu River, dispatched hundreds of thousands of troops to aid their North Korean allies. The Chinese intervention transformed the war. One of the most harrowing episodes took place at the Chosin Reservoir, a remote and mountainous region in northern Korea. In November 1950, as temperatures plummeted to sub-zero levels, some 30,000 UN troops found themselves surrounded by over 120,000 Chinese troops. The Battle of Chosin Reservoir became a desperate struggle for survival, with UN forces fighting their way through the Chinese encirclement in a grueling 17-day retreat. The Chinese intervention transformed the Korean War into a bloody stalemate. The front lines stabilized near the 38th parallel, and the war settled into a brutal pattern of attrition. Life for the soldiers on both sides was grim, enduring constant shelling, sniper fire, and the ever-present threat of enemy attacks. Negotiations for a ceasefire began in 1951 but dragged on for 2 years, hampered by disagreements over the repatriation of prisoners of war and the demarcation of the border. In the meantime, the fighting continued, claiming thousands more lives in a seemingly endless cycle of violence. While the ground war raged on, a different kind of conflict was taking place in the skies over Korea. The Korean War marked the first time that jet aircraft were used in large numbers in combat, ushering in a new era of aerial warfare. The American F-86 Sabre and the Soviet-built MiG-15 clashed in dogfights over MiG Alley, a notorious stretch of airspace along the Yalu River. These aerial duels demanded extraordinary skill and courage from the pilots on both sides. American bombers, including the massive B-29 Superfortress, flew thousands of sorties, targeting North Korean industrial centers, supply lines, and troop concentrations. The Korean War demonstrated the growing importance of air power in modern warfare and provided valuable lessons that would shape the future of military aviation. After 3 long years of fighting and millions of casualties, an armistice agreement was finally signed on July 27, 1953, ending the Korean War. The agreement established a demilitarized zone, or DMZ, along the 38th parallel, effectively dividing the Korean Peninsula into 2 separate states. The Korean War, though officially ending in an armistice, never truly ended. No peace treaty was ever signed, and the 2 Koreas remained technically at war, separated by a heavily fortified border. The war left an indelible mark on the Korean Peninsula, with millions killed, wounded, or displaced. The war also deepened the political and ideological divisions between North and South Korea. The Korean War's enduring legacy, a crucible of the Cold War. The Korean War, though often overshadowed by other conflicts, had a profound impact on the international system, shaping the course of global politics for decades to come. The war solidified the bipolar division of the world between the communist bloc, led by the Soviet Union, and the capitalist West, led by the United States. It also demonstrated the dangers of proxy wars, in which superpowers vied for influence and dominance through smaller regional conflicts. The Korean War had a significant impact on the development of the United Nations, marking the first time that the UN had authorized the use of military force to repel aggression. The Korean War, despite its often overlooked place in history, deserves to be remembered for the sacrifices made by those who fought in it. It offers profound lessons about the complexities of international relations, the human cost of ideological conflicts, and the enduring legacy of the Cold War. It is a reminder that small wars can have global consequences, and that the pursuit of peace requires constant vigilance. The Korean War also serves as a stark reminder of the human cost of war, with millions of Koreans, both soldiers and civilians, losing their lives in the conflict. The war's legacy of division, mistrust, and unresolved conflict continues to cast a long shadow over the Korean Peninsula. The Korean War may be a forgotten war to some, but its echoes reverberate to this day. The war's legacy can be seen in the continued division of the Korean Peninsula, the tense relationship between North and South Korea, and the ongoing nuclear standoff. The Korean War also had a profound impact on the United States, shaping its foreign policy and military posture for decades to come. The war led to the expansion of the US military and the creation of a permanent military presence in Asia. The Korean War serves as a reminder that the Cold War, though officially over, continues to cast a long shadow over international relations. It is a war that deserves to be remembered, not just for the sacrifices made by those who fought in it, but also for the valuable lessons it offers about the complexities of the world we live in.